My favorite cosmology begins with the energy of all, described only as the ineffable one or the monad, who created space in order to experience themselves. And in the creation of space, created a witness, the original Trinity. The emanations of this space created 36 archons, who were of the essence, the divine number 9 that we come to in the hero's journey when we know ourselves. The 36th archon, Sophia, broke out of the space-time continuum in what we know as the Big Bang. In this great immaculate abortion, she was separated from her Christ consciousness, the Kundalini union, and from her matter fell the Watchmen, the Anunnaki, and the Nephilim. In the same instant, the lump sum of her emotions created polarity and duality. In the grief, the horror of spirit becoming matter, feeling the weight of it all, the sun in our galaxy, Sabaoth, known as the Sabbath day, known in mythology as Enki or Prometheus or Lucifer, he is the liberator of humanity. And he took compassion on Sophia and brought her into his orbit. Sophia did not birth the earth, she became it. The earth we trod is her flesh. Sophia looked at the beautiful horror of her creation and saw a lion staring in his reflection in her waters, experiencing for the first time consciousness. She called to him Yaldabaoth, which translates to young man, come over here. He mistook her voice for his reflection and began to see himself as God. He is what Christians warn of a lion roaming the earth, but he is not Lucifer. He is Yaldabaoth, the Christian God. He is the lowercase Lord recorded in the Hebrew text. The reason there is such a difference between the Old Testament and New Testament gods. Depending on the invocation, we may access Yaldabaoth or Sophia through her Christ consciousness. It was Sophia's Christ consciousness who incarnated as a magician under the school of Horus, and whose underworld journey was a plea to reconsider the feminine. The Gnostic belief that we are a cosmic mistake is true. We are. We are the accumulation of Sophia's mistake and her compassion. Higher Sophia has reunited with herself as a spirit energy beyond time and space, but lower Sophia remains in matter, for we are her creation. We carry the divine spark and light within us. It is the business of Yaldabaoth to have us forget our divine origins, our Sophia lineage. In yogic teachings, one of the kleshas, the obstacles to enlightenment, is spiritual forgetting. So one of our spiritual practices is a spiritual remembering. We are made to forget with the combined effort of systems of oppression, how purity culture denies us of pleasure, so we self-medicate with consumerism, is spiritual forgetting in essence. Lilith, Adam's first wife mentioned in the Nag Hammadi scrolls, was too sovereign in her Sophia energy that she was cast out of the garden, so Yaldabaoth could create his own puppet, Eve. But Sabaoth, Enki, Prometheus, Lucifer, liberator of humanity, reminded Eve of her Sophia lineage by bringing her knowledge of good and evil. Eve was not cast out of the garden because she had sinned. She had learned the truth of her captor, Yaldabaoth. Eve was not filled with shame at her nakedness because she had started purity culture. She had learned who she had been serving. She became awake instead of ignorant. Yaldabaoth's deception was exposed. Sophia tried to maintain connection with her creation through goddess worship, the veneration of the female form, which we see today through pornography, objectification, and matriarchal social structures. Men were not sent hunting because they were exceptional. They were in the way and always required permission from the grandmothers. In an attempt to gather together her light, Sophia's Christ consciousness, her divine anima, with whom she had been separated since becoming matter, incarnated in human form at different times in different ways to different peoples to appeal to humanity. He came as Buddha, Allah, Krishna, Jesus, with the same message. The divine is not only within you. The divine is you. Jesus became rather well known because Emperor Constantine saw a political opportunity to control his population through religious propaganda. Jesus was actually just an advanced magician's apprentice under Horus, who referred to their magic master as Father, as in, I and my Father are one. Christians are correct that Jesus is Yahweh, which in Hebrew sounds like an inhale and an exhale, because it is a clue. We are divine. It is a piece of bread on the trail leading us back to Sophia, our mother. Our breath is divine, and she is our breath. Any magician under Horus is to conduct an underworld journey, so this was not unique to Jesus. The purpose of this pilgrimage is to hang lanterns with the divine Sophia light along the caverns of the underworld so that other visitors could also find their way back to Sophia. Jesus partnered with Mary Magdalene, a sex magic priestess under Isis, who is an emanation of Sophia, during his incarnation here on earth to charge his ka, or subtle body, in preparation for his underworld journey. Men need the feminine energy to connect with their Sophia nature, so Freud was incorrect. Women do not have penis envy, men have womb envy. Plato was incorrect. Women are not an empty vessel, but our space is sacred. Jesus was so persecuted for the same reason that the LSD trials were shut down at Harvard. Being reminded of our Sophia lineage is a threat to the power and control the systems wield over us. And so they create this moralistic shame, these hurdles between the status quo and our enlightenment. It is no mistake that the path makers of enlightenment are made to be illegal. They are activities that harm no one, but their power is feared. The only reason to criminalize expansion is control. Drugs are illegal. Witchcraft is weird. Previously, it was dangerous. Ceremonies were illegal. A drug like alcohol, whose only purpose is a numbing agent, is glorified. It is our culture's lack of spirit that we reach to in spirits. Drugs like psilocybin, which is literally the safest drug ever to exist, is illegal. It is abundantly clear that the system is threatened by our knowledge. The reason tarot cards are so vilified in the church is because they are a map of the Kabbalistic tree of life, the twin tree in the Garden of Eden beside the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Tarot is vilified because it is another way that Enki reaches to us on behalf of Sophia, his solar companion in matter. All earth-based spiritualities, including witchcraft, reconnects us directly with Sophia's flesh. It is because there is no need for a priest that they are demonized. Yaldabaoth is losing control of Eve because the serpent liberator keeps coming with the knowledge, lifting the veil of ignorant illusion. Mary Magdalene was persecuted out of envy for her connection to Jesus, but also because of her magical prowess. Her and her daughter with Jesus, Sarah, fled first to France and then to Glastonbury in England. Sarah's husband was a knight, and thus the Knights Templar came into existence. They were executed and extinguished by the French King Philip IV and Pope Clement V because the king was grossly in debt to the knights, and the king despised their power over him. While being burned at the stake, Jacques de Molay cursed the persecutors and called for divine justice. Both the king and the pope were dead within the year. This is what we see on the death tarot card, the pope and the king pleading for their life. The knights were coerced into giving false confessions, including of worshiping the Baphomet, a hermaphrodite deity with the ram horns of the Egyptian god Num, the original godhead, as the monad is the ineffable one. Human breasts, bat wings, an inner wheel of Dharma lit with the fire spark light of Sophia as the phallic active energy. The knights had been privy to the knowledge, and the system allowed it while it benefited them with crusades and other means of violence and colonialism. But as soon as it didn't, the veil of ignorance was made to fall once again. We have moved so far from goddess worship of ancient days where men offered the whole meal to their wives and would eat with honor the leftovers, where they were obligated to rub her feet each night as an offering, which are real rituals in real cultures at real times. From the sacred prostitute temple priestess whose virginity never ceased because her purpose was bringing people into higher states of consciousness, ecstasis, through her expansive gift. Virginity in its etymology means a woman who owns herself, and temple priestesses did. They were the only women who could own property because they did not belong to their father or their husband. They were of the goddess herself. Purity culture has robbed us of the power of pleasure. In the ecstatic orgasm, we experience a moment of divine union with Sophia. We are in whole presence. The French call the orgasm the little death because we reach the same divine union we experience in the beauty of death. This place is the place we go to in the moment of orgasm, in our dreams, when we're high on drugs, in ecstatic states, and in death. It is all the same place because we are Sophia. In physical death, our heart is weighed against an ostrich feather, feathers who are all equal in length. And if our heart is light, we have no attachments to matter, as in we lived in trust. Our consciousness unifies with our Sophia energy, and we become both nothing and everything, an ever-present moving energy, vitality. If our heart is heavier than the feather, as in we lived in fear, with attachments to matter or image, our consciousness gets wiped clean and we have to start again until we get it. Sometimes, if our heart is heavier than the feather, but we have tried to live in trust, in alignment with the divine Sophia, she will allow us to leave clues. Our consciousness is not wiped fully clean. It becomes like writing carbon copy, hiding breadcrumbs to find the trail back to the truths that are unmistakable. I was a feminist before I knew what it was because it was implanted as a clue. I knew I wouldn't have children because it was implanted as a warning not to be distracted from my path. It had taken me away before. These moments of claircognition are manna from heaven, wisdom, gnosis of inspirational gifts from Sophia, from myself. God is not within me. I am God incarnate. I am the microcosm of her macrocosm. I am the universe, and she is me. The patriarchy despises being beholden to anyone. Just as King Philip IV despised being indebted to the knights. So instead of experiencing the world as energy incarnated as matter, as union, the yoga of spirit and body as one, the harmony of the yin and the yang, patriarchy, supremacy, and capitalism have sought to exploit the mother's flesh on which we live. They extract from her waters and decimate her resources because they despise their reliance upon her. They are seeking to destroy the anima within themselves by destroying the earth herself. Nature and humanity have lived in harmony in epochs before. Whales have been seen to come alongside ships in humble sacrifice. And humans in return honored the gifts of Sophia with sacrifices of their own. The systems have deluded us to believe that the earth is not alive, that her resources are limitless, and simultaneously that power is finite. The systems have deluded us to believe we have no higher purpose, that we are rational brains designed to work 40 hours a week our entire lives, cursed with these carbon-based bodies for 70 years. We despise the process of aging and seek immortality. Once chasing fountains now occurs under the knife. The vilification of women, trans, and non-binary folks is because Yaldabaoth is losing control. We are returning to our state of divine union. The sadistic God of the Old Testament who gets off on our suffering loses stamina every time we stay true to ourselves. In not abandoning ourselves, we disempower the lion of deception roaming the earth with a misplaced God complex. Sophia cannot and will not be destroyed. She is generous in her relations to her creation, but she will not be destroyed for us. She is gathering her light within us, that we might unite with the fullness of Sophia in higher, upper Sophia. So find your light, gather your light, silence systems and their agents that deny your divinity. You are not a disembodied brain. You are the universe incarnate.